Welcome to World Kidney News. I am Steve Belcher.
And I'm Tamika Gaines.
Thank you. Welcome again. Welcome to a special broadcast. What's going on, Tamika?
Hey, Steve, how are you?
All right, you looking mighty good there.
Thank you. I'm coming up well.
Right. Wow. Hey, Tamika, tonight's show, this special broadcast of World Kidney News is a special one. For the first time ever, I mean, we had Diana CLYNES on when we were at the AAKP meeting last September, but this is the first of her actually appearing on Urban Health Outreach Network, right. The AAKP Executive Director.
Wow, I'm excited.
I mean, I wouldn't have never imagined this in my wildest dreams. Especially doing dialysis before I even met you, before we even met and started doing what we were doing. I seen AAKP's magazine all over the place doing dialysis in multiple clinics and seeing the pictures, Richard Knight, Paul Conway, Diana CLYNES. This was years ago. And here we are, April 21st, 2020, and have the privilege of having Diana CLYNES on Urban Health Outreach Meeting. I was getting ready to say Urban Kidney Talk with Tamika and Steve.
Yes, I'm real excited. It's going to be very, very interesting and informative for a lot of people.
Yeah, and she's here today along with other special guests to talk about their National High Potassium Awareness Day.
Oh, wow.
I mean, and you know, high potassium is real big in the in kidney dialysis. I mean, it's so big that if not the and we'll find out, is one of the maybe leading causes of a cardiac arrest in the dialysis clinic.
Yep, and brittle bones.
Yeah. So let's introduce our guests we have. I'm so excited. First, we have the executive director of AAKP. Before she became director, she was public relations, communications, and marketing rep for the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation.
Wow.
She was commission outreach coordination and division of marine fishery office. She also worked for the Tampa Bay Port Authority. I mean, she holds a bachelor's degree in mass communication. And I mean, I can see what she's been doing with an emphasis in public relations and a minor in business. AAKP Executive Director, Diana CLYNES. Hey, Diana, how you doing?
Hi, Steve. Hi, Tamika. I'm doing well. How are you two?
We're well.
I mean, I'm just ecstatic and really, I'm just speaking for myself, really appreciative that you took the time out of your busy schedule from the largest patient organization in the country to come on our show. Thank you so much.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I mean, I'm just kind of starstruck. I mean, the last time we seen you, we were in Washington, D.C., where you presented Urban Kidney Alliance with the social media award. And again, thank you for that honor.
Oh, you're welcome. So much deserved. You guys do great work and reach such a wide audience. And it's, you know, we thank you for everything you are doing.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, thank you. So to make our next guest, I mean, wow. I mean, this is impressive. I mean, she's a graduate of West Virginia University School of Nursing with a doctor of nursing practice, certified faculty nurse practitioner, certified family nurse practitioner, certified nephrology nurse practitioner. She's presented numerous presentations on kidney disease, published numerous articles on kidney disease, volunteered with many organizations such as National Kidney Foundation, Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. She's affiliated with multiple organizations. I mean, she done wrote many articles. Presently, she's at Renal Consultants PLLC and rep for RELYPSA. No other than Dr. Cynthia A. Smith. Hey, Dr. Smith, how you doing?
Hi. Well, thank you so much for having me. Hi, Steve. Hi, Tamika. Hi, Diane.
Hey, Dr. Smith, can you tilt your camera down a little bit because your the banner's
Sure.
there you go, right there.
There we go. I'll just hold it.
All right, thank you for joining the broadcast. How's everything in West Virginia?
It's good. We're flattening the COVID curve, as we say. We're able to keep it out of the dialysis unit so far.
Okay.
So we're it's a hard fought battle, but I work with excellent people, and and I tell you, across the country, I got to give it to these kidney patients. They're doing a great job.
Wow. Wait a minute. I want to bring on our next guest.
Okay.
Yeah, let me bring on the other guest, and then we're going to get to it. Our next guest, this guy's from Idaho. He was diagnosed, Tamika, at age 12 with type 1 diabetes. And as a young adult, he developed high blood pressure, which led to dialysis. And after an 11-month wait, he received a kidney. Now, check this out. From his adoptive sister.
Wow.
Adoptive sister. And on top of that, he received a unidentified donor pancreas. So he got a pancreas from someone else, and his adoptive sister gave him a kidney.
Wow.
Then sometime later, he received another transplant because that one had failed from an unknown donor, which he still has today. He's also on the AAKP board of directors, kidney advocate. We met him at the AAKP meeting in September. Dale Rogers. Hey, Dale, what's going on?
Hey, Steve. Thanks for that great introduction.
Oh man, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
What's going on out in Idaho?
You know, we're just living the dream out here in the mountains of North Idaho.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I never been there, but man, I'm sure you got some nice mountains and greenery, green space out there to enjoy. I've seen some of the pictures with you in your truck out in the hillside.
Yeah. We'll try to get out as much as we can to enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, now last guest, we all know her. She doesn't need introduction, but I'm going to introduce her anyway. She's a advisory board member at IPRO. She's a kidney health ambassador at Rogerson Institute. She's an educator, advocate at Next Stage Home Dialysis, 29-year kidney patient warrior, CEO of New York State CKD Champions, education consultant to Urban Health Outreach Media, and board member of the Urban Kidney Alliance, no other than Dawn Edwards. What's going on, Dawn?
Dawn, can you hear us?
Uh-oh, she froze up.
Hey, good evening, everyone. How's everybody doing?
Okay, great,
Great
Dawn.
Good to see everyone.
Great. Your picture froze up, just to let you know. Okay, I guess she'll come back.
Yeah.
So Tamika, what was
I'm
you going
having
to
a
mention?
little trouble. Yeah, I'm having a little trouble hearing you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I'm going to sign off and jump back on. Having a
Sure,
little trouble.
sure. Tamika, now what were you going to ask Dr. Smith?
I was going to ask you, you said there were no COVID patients in your unit?
No, we've been fortunate with that. Now, there have been some possibles, and they are being dialyzed in a separate unit. Actually, I do round at that unit. I work in West Virginia, so we have most West Virginia is pretty rural, but I do have a couple of patients who have it. They are actually dialyzing about an hour away from me. Our big outbreak right now is in the rehab centers.
Oh, okay.
So like DIALYSIS missionarily, where they're having the outbreaks in the VA centers, we're seeing it in the nursing home rehabs. That's our hot spots. Kanawha County, where I work at, is one of the biggest hot spots in the state. But we've been really blessed. I mean, you talk about a team. Patients are paying attention. I got to give it to people. It's a frightening world, but kidney patients are amazing, brave people.
Wow. So, Diana, you're the main reason why we're here today. And with that being said, let's just start off with people who may not know you. They may have seen the AAKP brand that we see right behind you, but they don't know the face of the brand. Now, how long have you been executive director of the AAKP?
I've been in the executive director position a little over 2 years now, but I've been with AAKP overall over 15 years.
Wow. Wow. Can you kind of give us a brief synopsis of AAKP's mission for people who may be watching this for the first time and never heard of the American Association for Kidney Patients?
Sure. So AAKP, we were founded oldest and largest independent kidney patient organization in the U.S. We were founded by 6 dialysis patients at a time when dialysis wasn't a readily available treatment option to all individuals suffering from kidney disease. And to this date, we're still governed by a majority board of kidney patients, and our president, by our bylaws, must be a kidney patient as well. So we are a very unique organization that we were founded by patients, and we're still run by patients to this day. So we look at everything through that unique lens of the patient eye.
Mm-hmm. So you actually work for the patients?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I've met amazing, wonderful people throughout my 15 years. I lost a lot of amazing friends as well, but it's a passion of mine. Kidney disease is absolutely a silent killer, and so we're not going to rest until we can put a spotlight on it and create some more innovation and research, and hopefully one day find a cure.
Okay, Dawn, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. It's a little rough, but I hear you.
Okay. So let's get into this, into the your initiative, the National High Potassium Awareness Day. Now, Diane, how did the concept come up? Are you okay? 5.1. How did that concept come up?
Yeah, well, we really wanted to. So kidney patients have to deal with a lot of comorbid, related conditions, anemia and bone disease, high potassium. So we really wanted to try to shine a spotlight on hyperkalemia, and so that was really the driving force, obviously, behind this campaign. And the "Are You Okay" slogan is, so K is the scientific symbol for potassium, and so we wanted to take a commonly used phrase and kind of work that symbolism. And because one of the main objectives of this campaign is having folks know their numbers, just know where they are. 5.1 is significant because that's really kind of the tipping scale of where hyperkalemia will start. And that's, and as Dr. Smith will elaborate more on, it's
Sure.
really dangerous. So we try to make everything really symbolic. So folks understand it, they remember it, and it makes a difference.
Right. Now, Dr. Smith, why is potassium so important to kidney patients?
That is such an excellent question, because potassium is, it's absolutely critical. It's important for the way our nerves work, for the way our muscles work. I just kind of tell patients, we got to, if we go back to our old biology class of why exactly does the muscle fire? And it has to do with the fact that most of the potassium is in our cells. Actually, 98% of potassium in our body is in our cells itself. So that means we've got a very small amount actually in the blood. So it's amazing when we eat this beautiful dance that almost occurs in the body, where we eat all these really great high potassium foods. Healthy kidneys are there to kind of handle it. The body has these little buffering mechanisms that kick in. But basically what happens, kind of simply, is the kidney is responsible for 90% of potassium regulation. And the other 10% is really related to the gut. So as the kidney is starting to weaken, it starts to have trouble getting rid of potassium. Now, what's interesting is the kidney will try to compensate. It can compensate actually pretty decently, but the weaker the kidney gets, the worse that gets. And then a lot of times your gut will step in and it will try to help flush out this high potassium. But at a certain point, it's not going to be able to do it. And because we got this big difference between the potassium in the cells and out of cells, the more that potassium goes up in the blood, the more it starts to mess with some of these mechanisms we have in play. That's why it can become very dangerous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Tamika, you got a question?
No, I was just thinking about, like, when my patients are on a machine and they start cramping, I'm always quick to give them some either some saline or some oxygen to go to the cells.
Love your thought. Love your thought process.
Wow.
And by just learning,
Yes.
and that seems to work.
Sure. Now, Dale, what issues have you had with potassium? How has it impacted your life as a kidney patient?
Well, I remember back starting dialysis the second time after my first kidney transplant failed. And my dietitian told myself and my significant other that be careful what you eat, it can kill you. And so that was always very significant thought during my whole time. But I can remember back simply eating a bowl of granola, and I didn't even have milk on it. I had coffee made on it, and it took me down that whole weekend. I just couldn't function because the potassium in it. And then another time I was on a doctor advised diet fasting program, and because of the fast, like the Dr. Smith was saying, a bunch of the potassium came out of my cells and flooded me, and I ended up being 6.9, and I had trouble walking.
Wow. Really?
Yeah.
Don, how has potassium impacted you?
Well, I've had some real experiences with high potassium over my course of kidney disease. One of the times that I can really remember, I was going through a depression episode. I have anxiety depression that I go through little spells once in a while, and I got so depressed one time I stopped doing dialysis treatment, and I didn't do treatment. I missed quite a few, and my potassium shot up so high until I was literally paralyzed. I couldn't move. I was aware of everything that was going on around me, but my muscles wouldn't move. I couldn't move my head, my limbs, or anything, and I had to be rushed to the hospital as a result. That's one of my most memorable times. And I believe at that time my potassium was like an 8 or a 9 or something like that. I'm sure I was on the way out. And even more recently, I've adapted to eating more fruits and vegetables as opposed to eating a lot of meat. And so I have to be consciously aware of my potassium levels because I tend to run a high potassium. So my doctor is really on top of that potassium, to make sure that we keep it under control. Thankfully, after 29 years of kidney disease, my heart is in excellent condition because I really could have gone into cardiac arrest and I could have been gone. So this is a really important campaign, and I think that we all, as kidney patients, need to be aware of our potassium levels. We need to check when we get our blood work back and ask questions and pay attention of the foods that we should avoid and limit the things that are high in potassium because it is really a serious deal when your potassium gets out of whack.
Sure. Dr. Smith, I just had a kind of technical question, but if you could just break it down, why is it when some patients go to the hospital or to the ER for hyperkalemia or high potassium, they are administered insulin?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, the reason for it is, remember I alluded to that complex dance that occurs to get potassium into the body. One of the big regulators of that is insulin. So the reason we give the insulin is it opens up those pathways and says, okay, no, we need you to, now potassium, get out of the blood, get into those cells. It shifts it very rapidly. Now, obviously, if you don't have very high sugar, we'll go ahead. You got to give sugar with. You're going to drop them right down. If the sugar's up, hey, great, problem solved. That is one of the treatments we do to urgently treat to get that potassium under control. I mean, that's a great question.
Mm-hmm. Now, does that work rapidly than the sorbitol SPS that a lot of nephrologists prescribe to kidney patients that may miss dialysis as a result of a natural disaster or emergency disaster? Does that work rapidly than that sorbitol solution?
Yes, it does. The fastest way, the first thing, if you get a patient who's having a cardiac event due to the potassium being high, actually the first thing we do is give them calcium through an IV. That'll stabilize the heart, but that's not going to get rid of the potassium. It's going to just keep that heart from becoming too excited and doing something you don't want it to do, like have a heart attack or stop.
Right.
So then the next thing is you got to think, okay, let's use these natural defense mechanisms to our advantage. So we'll use drugs like albuterol. Most people know about an albuterol inhaler. You give really high dose albuterol through a nebulizer, shift the potassium in. Wow. The other thing you can do is, it's amazing what we can do. And it shifts it fast because it'll bring it right down. As you alluded to, you can use the insulin. So one of the things sometimes when I'm treating my diabetics and I see little potassium spikes starting to go up, I'll say, hey, if we get that sugar a little better controlled, that will help. Another thing we'll sometimes do, and kidney patients aren't always aware of why we are doing this from the clinical viewpoint, is something called metabolic acidosis, which is if you ever look at your labs, you'll see it says CO2. We want it to be at least 22 or above. The lower that number, it means you're running acidic. And that's what weak kidneys do. Weak kidneys screw up all kind of stuff.
Right.
I mean, it's so unfair what happens with kidneys. But that acidotic state kind of unfortunately can cause you to have trouble with the potassium going up, running the sugar too high. just the fact the sugar is up really high will kind of pull water out of the cells. Well, that will pull potassium out with it. So we have kind of urgent treatments. Now, what you alluded to with the SPS, or what we call KXLate, and that was for the original potassium binders. It's a great medication, but it kicks in much slower over several hours.
Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. And the nice thing
somebody
now
had their somebody had their phone on. Don, is that you? Okay, I'm sorry, Dr. Smith.
No, it's okay. We can use things like Lasix, the diuretics. There are ones that will pee off potassium. So the rule number one, stabilize the heart. Rule number two, get the potassium shifted. The problem with using insulin and albuterol, it doesn't last very long. And then you got to step in with dialysis, for example.
Right.
You got a dialysis patient. As soon as you start dialyzing them, potassium will start going down. Unfortunately, dialysis patients know you finish dialysis, potassium starts going back up.
What do you think the best way to educate the patients on potassium is in the unit?
Oh my goodness! I'll tell you, to be honest, I've had two experiences with patients. I watched one trying to code in front of me. I never want to do that. I never want to see that again. And I lost one who got into a bag of potato chips in a snowstorm, and they couldn't get to him in time. So I've become a little hard-nosed. We usually will let potassiums run up to about 5.5. Not inappropriate, coming in pre-dialysis. I start seeing those numbers start to creep up above 5. You start getting around 5.5. We're having conversations. It's what's going on here. Has somebody put a new medication on you I don't know about? Are you eating something maybe because there's COVID going on right now and you got to those beans, trying to because you don't want to go to the store. So yeah, I to be honest, I started educating very, very quickly if I start seeing it go up, to have those conversations, because I don't want to have somebody rapidly shift. As Dale kind of alluded to, you shift fast. The worry is that heart's going to pick up on that. And that's an important thing is dialysis patients, they can actually kind of sort of adapt to a higher potassium. It's not a good way to be. I mean, you'll go to conferences and hear my colleagues talk about some of the highs they've seen people walking around with. And nowadays we have better thought processes. We're shifting the curve on where those potassiums should be. So yeah, I'm looking at those numbers all the time, having those conversations especially when I see a jump where I'm not used to.
Sure. Now, Diana, what does the AAKP hope to achieve with the National High Potassium Awareness Day?
We're hoping to kind of bring the issue of potassium to the forefront with kidney patients, so that they understand the role that potassium can play in damaging the kidneys or the heart if unmanaged. So a lot of education. We're also looking to kind of bridge that gap and let folks know, become familiar with the word hyperkalemia. A lot of that's the clinical term for high potassium, and it's not the common term that patients use or family members use. So really kind of trying to bridge that gap. So if they hear high potassium, if they hear hyperkalemia, they understand what's going on. We're really hoping to encourage folks to understand their lab values and to promote conversation between themselves and their healthcare team, so that they can play an active role in understanding what they can do outside of a dialysis facility to keep themselves as healthy as possible.
Okay. Now, Dale, what do you hope to achieve as a board member with this initiative, the National High Potassium Awareness Day, being that this had an impact in your life at one time?
My personal opinion towards this whole thing is education, education, education. And I believe that the more education we can get out to kidney patients, especially dialysis patients, that it allows them to suck it in. Sometimes there's a barrier between the professionals and kidney patients, because kidney patients feel like that they're just all the time getting buffaloed by the professionals, that you're not doing this right, you're not doing this right. And I believe that by doing this, that kidney advocates and kidney patients can learn from this, and they can take it back to other kidney patients. You know, probably one of the things that was most stressful and most eye-opening to me on some of these things is seeing a patient taken out of dialysis that had coded from something like this, you know. And I believe that patients have a larger ability than they think to educate other patients, because I mean, let's face it, there's kidney patients going in dialysis as new patients every day. And if some of the patients that have been there a while could share their experience to help the other patients that are newer learn more about this, I believe that your organization and AAKP is a building block to help facilitate these things.
Don, are you still there? Oh no, I think we lost Dawn. She's been having some connectivity issue. Hopefully she'll sign back on.
Steve, real quick, I just wanted to say
Sure.
that I think there's kind of a language barrier when talking to patients about different like lab values and stuff like that. I think that if it was broken down into a conversation that they can really understand, I think that would go well with educating them.
What do you think, Dr. Smith? I mean, you're in the unit a lot of times.
Absolutely. You know, where I'm from, I like to joke, I speak West Virginian and medical, and they're not the same language. West Virginia, I like to call good old common sense talk, because you know you're right. Nephrology is extremely complicated. It's full of chemistry and math, and people's two favorite subjects, right? You know, so when I talk to patients, you know, you got to break it down. You know, even though these are advanced concepts. So you know, when I talk about kidneys, and I talk about a kidney spelling protein, I won't use these. You know, the language I'll use is I'll say, think about your kidney like a coffee maker. I want good coffee in the coffee pot, right? I don't want to see something weird like tea. That coffee is the chemistry. So I want that good chemistry, but I don't want to find coffee grounds in my coffee pot. And if I got coffee grounds in, I know my filters are busted. And a lot of times with high potassium, I'll allude to going back to this idea of the coffee in there, that we got to work on that chemistry part, and those kidneys just can't handle this. And a lot of times, you know, unfortunately, as you kind of alluded to, we'll have to use certain medications because we're trying to protect somebody's heart.
Right.
We're trying to, you know, there's some argument about preserving the kidney function that's left. But yeah, you know, it's, you know, Dale brought up a really important point that I am a big advocate for, which is I think patients always, you know, your clinician comes and rounds on you and you've got maybe 5 minutes with them. And I don't like to sit there and go, you did bad, you did this. You know, it's so hard to do all this stuff right. And the world's complicated. And you just sit and say, I'll say, okay, wait a minute, I got a potassium spike. You know, what's going on here? You know, I'm kind of worried about you. And you'll find maybe they got into a bag of oranges that the grandkids bought and they didn't want to throw away.
Right.
Or you may have a GI bleed. You know, I've caught a lot of them that way, where that blood breaks down when it digests.
Right.
So yeah, it's just on, you know, I'll tell them, say, I'm not going to yell at you, you know, just tell me what's going on here. And then you worry because, you know, high potassium is usually asymptomatic until it's about to get you in serious trouble. That's kind of the worry.
Right.
And the one thing I'll say, I think our wonderful patient evidence can attest to this. The biggest thing I get in outpatient clinic, I don't get it in dialysis, is the symptoms of high potassium. People will think it's low potassium and they go and they grab the sports drinks. They go and grab the Gatorade.
Wow.
And now piling in salt and potassium. I get that all the time.
Right.
Especially in the summertime, I see a lot of patients coming with sports drinks to try to quench their thirst, and I'll go out snatching them.
Right.
No, like
Don,
that's not what you need.
Don, are you there? Hello, Don. Tamika.
Yes, Dawn is still here.
I know she's not answering. I don't know if she can hear me.
Dawn, I believe she's frozen.
Wow. Now, Diana, what do you, well, let me ask you this. After May the 1st, well, first tell us about what's happening May the 1st, because this is what all this is leading up to.
Right. So, as part of the campaign, we have a number of educational components that we've been pushing out to the kidney community for quite a few weeks now. So we have a dedicated campaign webpage that has a lot of really great resources on it, an infographic, fact sheets, things of that nature that, patients can review or healthcare professionals can download and distribute to their patients. And this is all accumulating to obviously May 1st, 5.1, the tie-in to the tip over to hyperkalemia. But on May 1st at 1 p.m. Eastern time, AAKP is hosting an educational webinar, and a couple of our guests here, Dr. Smith and Dale Rogers, will be on the webinar. We're also featuring Carolyn Figdig. She's a renal dietitian at George Washington University. She'll be on the webinar as well. So we'll talk a little bit about the campaign at the beginning of the webinar, but then we're really going to kind of go into a lot of great educational and informational material by our guest speakers.
Okay, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, my co-host Tamika, she had to leave, so that's fine. And Dawn, I think she's having some connective problems with her device. Now, Diana, how will the organization keep this campaign going in the forefront of, for kidney patients so they can constantly be aware of this?
Right. Well, we're definitely keeping all the educational material up. So if you go to our website, which is aakp.org, you'll see under the Center for Patient Education and Research, under the Education tab, we have co-related health conditions. And so there's a lot of information about gout and high potassium and anemia. And under our programs and events, we're going to keep the campaign, the Are You OK campaign live. And so we'll be increasing all the resources to this. We've also launched a Facebook and a Twitter page. It's at RU OK 5.1. So folks can continue to follow us on social media. And we've seen a lot of really great engagement on that. We've gotten a large number of followers. A lot of folks are having conversations with each other and submitting questions that we're working with our healthcare professionals to respond to.
Great.
So we'll keep that going.
Great. Hey, Don, are you with us?
Yeah, I made it back on.
Awesome. Now, Don, we're going to hear a lot from you. but Don, how important is this initiative, the Are You OK 5.1 National High Potassium Awareness Day? How is that important to you, and how do you plan to participate in this initiative?
I think that this is it's exponentially important. One of the things, as a patient, it's important to me because I have kidney disease and I struggle with keeping my potassium under control. And it's not necessarily because I'm eating. I just tend to run a high potassium. But a lot of patients when I talk to them in the dialysis facilities, or when I speak to patients, a lot of them don't know the difference between potassium and phosphorus, or which foods are the high potassium ones versus which ones are the high phosphorus. And that's really important for us to know our lab values so that we can be in control of how we feel. Cardiac arrest is the leading cause of death in dialysis patients. And so potassium directly affects your cardiac health. So it's really important for us to be in tune with all of our blood levels, but specifically, we should be looking at that potassium so that we can keep our heart as healthy as possible. And I have every intention, I've been doing this for a long time, advocating and talking to patients. And I think I just make it my business always to talk to them about how important the diet is, because it directly affects how you feel from day to day.
Right. Now, since the pandemic, has it been hard for you living in the Big Apple, New York, and finding foods low in potassium? Has that been a challenge?
I'm so glad you asked that question, Steve. Um, in New York, it's really difficult as a patient that um, we're supposed to be socially distancing, and waiting on lines to get in the supermarket is not necessarily a great place for someone that's immunocompromised. There are dozens and people waiting online to get in the supermarkets, and then when you get inside, a lot of the good fresh things that you really want or that you should be eating are all gone. So a lot of people are forced to go to their neighborhood grocery stores, or what's right in the community. And in my community, I'm in an urban area, and we have Dollar General, we McDonald's, Little Caesars, all kinds of fast food in our area. And you go into the grocery store and there's non-perishable foods, and we know that those are all processed foods and things loaded with the it's just the stuff that we're not
Sure.
supposed to have, or we're supposed to limit. I don't want to say not supposed to have. So it's really difficult dealing with this pandemic in times like this right now, to make wise choices about purchasing food. So you have to be really conservative about what it is that you have in your pantry. The things that you purchase, even if you get the Meals on Wheels, and if you have people bringing you food, sometimes that's not even the things that we as kidney patients should have.
Sure.
So we have to be really careful during these days and times to watch what it is that we're eating, and check your list if you're not sure. If
Mm-hmm.
you're not sure, you can always go on the AAKP website, and there's loads of materials on there. You can find a whole list of the high potassium, high phosphorus foods, so that you can make those wise choices.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Smith, now we know this is show AAKP high National High Potassium Awareness Day, but for people like Don that lives in urban communities that may have lack of supermarkets. Now, you're a rep for RELYPSA. Can you just briefly explain how such a medication like that could be a very a game changer in a sense to people like Don who may be exposed to high potassium foods?
Oh, sure, happy to. Yeah, I'm in full disclosure, I am on the Speakers Bureau for RELYPSA for one of the two potassium binders that we have on the market. RELYPSA has one called Veltassa. The other one is a drug called Lokelma. Now, the kind of interesting thing you mentioned, Kxalate, sodium polystyrene sulfonate a while back. And until 2016, that was really all we had, and it wasn't that well studied, but it worked, so we used it because, well, that was all we had. So in 2016, it was kind of exciting. We had the first drug in 50 years to pull potassium out, and the thing is kind of cool about both of these drugs we have now is they both work in the GI tract. You see, remember telling you that the kidney pulls out 90, gut pulls out 10. Well, you're using that gut to help get rid of the potassium. Basically, these drugs work by binding the potassium. I won't get into the chemistry because people hate my chemistry usually, but basically it kind of grabs the potassium molecule, it exchanges it, whether it's with sodium or whether it's with calcium, and it just goes right out the GI tract. And the nice thing is both of these medications are extremely well tolerated. The big advantage with them is because they are so well tolerated, and the other thing is they're not absorbed into your body at all. They stay completely in the gut, which is very useful. Kind of the good bad with them is because the fact they grab onto potassium, there's been some argument they might grab onto medications. So we like to separate these from medications, usually about 2 to 3 hours. To be honest, I have far more experience with Veltassa. It was the first one to come out. It's been out a lot longer. We can mix it with potassium binders. Phosphorus binders, by the way. A lot of us are doing that. But, it's kind of, as Don alluded to, you get into a situation where, and we're having it now, people aren't able to go to the stores. They're eating what they've got. And sometimes you just have to bind the potassium out. And that's the good thing is this can be done. This can be done in dialysis patients. We know they're getting their dialysis. It's been studied. And there's kind of some interesting research on Veltassa, which I'm a little tickled with because it suggests it might actually pull some phosphorus out. It's used as a calcium counterion. But yeah, that's great. We have medicines now that are taken daily to get this out. And you had asked me about like snowstorms, I think earlier, and I've used this emergently after if I've got like a 3-foot snowstorm coming in, I'll send people home with this stuff for a couple days, either one of these to work. But yeah, a lot of people don't realize this stuff is out, and yes, it can be used CKD, it can be used in dialysis.
Mm-hmm. Now, Diana, Dawn had mentioned that people could go to the AAKP website for information. Now, can you just talk briefly about the extensive amount of education that the AAKP provides to patients and their family?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a wealth of information for individuals across the disease spectrum. So all the way from, earlier stage kidney disease where you may just have reduced kidney function, maybe you have risk factors for kidney disease, all the way through dialysis and the different modalities for dialysis, such as home hemo, peritoneal. We have information about different access options, all the way to transplantation. And then above that, we have information on, co-related conditions that a lot of patients have to deal with. We also have nutrition information, our AAKP nutrition counter, and our AAKP delicious kidney-friendly recipes are hugely popular. And we're actually just rolling out with a new educational series. It's a series of pocket guides that are really informative that patients can keep in their purse and their pocket, and they're focusing on different, different aspects of kidney disease. The first one that we came out with listed the top questions that you should ask your physician at different stages of kidney disease. And it was created as an opportunity to, really help guide the patients starting that conversation. We just came out with one on high potassium, and we'll be coming out with a pocket guide on anemia. So
that's awesome.
Check out the website. There's a lot of information on there, and we host a lot of educational webinars as well that we record and archive on the website. So, whatever you're looking for, we've probably got it on there.
All right. Now, Dale, can you hear me? Hello, Dale.
Yes.
Oh,
Hello?
okay. Now, Dale, you're a board member with the AAKP. Can you just share a little bit of your duties as a board member and how it has impacted your life being on the board of the AAKP?
Well, I think the most important thing to say regarding that is I think that the board members, especially the ones that have been kidney patients before, have been brought down to their knees by kidney disease. And main purpose for what's happening out in fields, bring it back so that we can as a board pool make decisions on how we can help educate the patient out in the world for real life circumstances. And I think that that's why you see us bringing the high potassium awareness day to the forefront of things, because high potassium is a real serious issue in the kidney world.
Mm-hmm. Now, Don, you being a home dialysis advocate, and before this coronavirus, you were going around to multiple units doing lobby days. Have you seen education such as this being disseminated or given out to patients about watching your potassium, even to home patients? How would they get their education information if they're not in the unit? Like for yourself, you do home dialysis, so even though I know you take care of your own education knowledge, but if you wasn't in that position, is the information given to you freely about watching your potassium and being careful?
Well, Steve, I'll say that I think the dietitians are doing as good a job as they possibly can. There's information that's available, and uh, I think that we as patients have to be empowered. And by what I mean by being empowered is by we have to get that education so that we can be in control. The dietitians can give you the booklets and they can sit down and they can talk to you about your labs, but ultimately we are the patients, we're in control. We can disregard everything that the dietitian says, or a lot of times, I've even had this done personally. You give patients some materials and they don't feel like reading that, or they're not feeling well today, and it ends up in the bottom of the dialysis bag. So it has to be a constant influx of information so that the patient can get an understanding of how important, these various aspects of your care are. It's more than just handing out a booklet and sitting down having a talk. It has to come from your doctor. You have to like, just like Dr. Smith says, you have to have that dialogue with your patients. The doctor has to have um they have to have a look into where your patient is coming from. For example, my doctor knows that I come from a food desert, so my exposure to food is a little different, and right now I'm having an issue, with getting food. So I got a prescription for Veltassa, but you have to have that dialogue with your care team. And I think that us as ambassadors and patient advocates, I think that's what we really need to be really focusing in on, making sure that we let patients know that they have to be actively involved in their care. And yeah, everybody takes a nap on dialysis, but you have to pay attention too.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to get the information that you need from the members of your care team.
Right. Now, Dr. Smith, by you being a practicing um, practitioner in the unit, do you see a lot of with what Don has just mentioned? Patients uneducated of what's going on, or they get some information and it's in the bottom of the dialysis bag under the blankets and everything, shuffled among other papers. Do you see a lot of that? And if you
Yeah.
do, and right, and if you do, how can we change that narrative?
Well, I think as Evelyn pointed out, it's really, it's a consistent message. It's letting people know it's important. I mean, phosphorus is death by 1,000 paper cuts. There's a reason we call it that. But the hyperkalemia, this high potassium, can be fatal, and that's not good. I mean, as Don alluded to, the biggest reason we lose patients in dialysis is cardiac. And, it's complicated. It's so important for patients to take ownership. I mean, to know where your potassium is at, what's going on with your numbers, particularly if somebody's not used to you. And, the biggest thing I gripe about all the time is I'll have a patient that they'll think has a urinary tract infection, and not to pick on Bactrim, but I'm going to pick on Bactrim because a lot of people don't realize that'll spike up potassium. Or it can. When people aren't used to advanced kidneys, and particularly dialysis, they'll put medications on, sometimes with the best intentions. And I sometimes find patients are hesitant to say, I've got bad kidneys. I had a really bad acute kidney injury here on an advanced stage 4. So that's extremely close to dialysis. And they just about took our kidneys out. And it was a very inappropriate dose of Bactrim. So now I get to treat her cellulitis, but that's okay. But at the end of the day, it's knowing where you're at, what's going on, what are your numbers. Is that way you can have this conversation. So if you go to see your cardiologist and they say, I want to put you on this medicine, that medicine may be great for your heart, but it might spike your potassium, and they may not think to mention that. And, so this is where having that conversation, bringing those meds in, saying, okay, wait a minute, stop. I have bad kidneys. Is this going to cause me a problem? Constantly bringing it up. I'm so proud of patients when they do that. Outpatient, they'll walk up and my favorite one is when they'll walk in and say, hey, Dr. Smith, what's my GFR and how's my protein in my urine? And I'm like, woohoo! We're starting there. What are my electrolytes? What's my potassium? It's beautiful. But yeah, taking ownership, constantly talking about it, giving patients those report cards. I'm a huge fan of that, sharing knowledge, sharing information back and forth, and just keeping it on the front burner. Because those short visits a lot of people have with their clinicians are usually very short, and we're talking anemia, blood pressure, how you doing dialysis, how's your parathyroid. But yeah, phosphorus, it's one that comes up a lot because of that death by 1,000 paper kind of issue.
Wow. Okay. Well, we're kind of coming down to the end of the broadcast, but I just want to go around before we end the show and just give each one of your thoughts on the National High Potassium Awareness Day. And we'll start with Dale. Dale, what do you want people to know about this campaign that AAKP is spearheading, the National High Potassium Awareness Day?
Well, I think the high potassium thing is huge, and I think one of the biggest things that could come out of this are several of the things that were just said by the doctor and by Dawn. Is that I'm a mentor in several of the dialysis units here locally in North Idaho, and I all the time talk to them and I tell them I am not medical, but go get out as much education as you can possibly get in every single area you can find in that has to do with kidney disease. Educate yourself, and then the next time that you got your 15 minutes with the doctor or your 5 minutes, then you can ask them questions, and then you can be in control of your health care. And this high potassium thing, I think this is just one of those educational tools that'll give the patient control of keeping themselves alive.
Okay. Don, what about you? What do you want people to know about the AAKP Are You Okay National High Potassium Awareness Day?
I just want everyone to be aware, be alert. Um, Go to the website and get the information that's there. It's so much great information to help you to learn and to understand. And if you don't understand something that you read, go back to your care team and ask questions about what you read, and talk to your dietitian. Have a dialogue with these people in your lives that are charged with helping you to stay healthy. Don't just take papers and stick them in your bag, or, just because you can't get the foods that you want, you just eat anything, because what you're going to end up paying for it later. Um, Take care of yourself now, and you'll be around later.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. Dr. Smith, from a clinical perspective, what can you share with kidney patients, kidney warriors who are watching this program right now that may be new, or that family members of kidney patients could be watching? What could you shed light on, or leave? What perspective could you leave with patients and family members?
Well, I think probably one of the biggest things is, research is telling us that so many kidney patients are kind of aware of high potassium. They don't really know what it means. They don't really understand why it's that big a deal.
Mm-hmm.
And, so there's this initiative, this Are You Okay, is so important, because I think there's so many people that may be a little hesitant to talk to their healthcare team, to talk to their dietitian, and kind of nobody likes to admit, I don't know something. And kidney disease is overwhelming, especially as you get more into the advanced. So I think these initiatives, I love these initiatives, because it's bringing education to people, saying, here it is, come, this is an open, where people ask questions. We want you to come. We want your family members to come, people who care about you to come, because there's such a lack of knowledge. I was surprised when I started the research on it a couple of years ago. It was like, oh my gosh, we just thought we were doing a good job. And as a clinician, we always don't always know this. And so we don't know what you don't know. We think you know.
Right.
So that's why absolutely. So we want to give you the tools. So we're going to give you the tools so then you can come and have those conversations with us about how best to take care of yourself. But it's okay not to know about this stuff. But it's not okay to not continue to know about this stuff. So, hey, it's to recognize, I don't know it. Come and learn. Come and learn. So I'm so glad we're doing this on May 1st.
That's awesome. And last but not least, Diana.
Great.
I mean, what do you want people to know about the AAKP Are You Okay National High Potassium Awareness Day? And can you also let them know where they could see this information, and the time and the information?
Yeah, well, what I'd like folks to know is, 5.1, 5.1, I want that number ingrained in everybody's head. But I also want everybody to know that it's more than just one day. We're shining a spotlight on high potassium on May 1st, but potassium is an issue that patients should be aware of all year long. So, I'd really love for folks to go to our campaign website. It's www.ruok.org, and get the information. And just like Dale and Dawn, share it with your fellow patients. There's no better way to educate somebody else than patient-to-patient education. So be that mentor, and be that mentor all year long, not just May 1st.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, this has been a great show. Diana, I just want to thank you for coming on, taking the time out of your schedule. Dr. Smith, I mean, you're a busy person. I mean, thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. Dale Rogers and Don Edwards, really appreciate doing this show, and also partnering with the AAKP to push this message out the High Potassium Awareness Day. So again, it's May 1st. And what time is the seminar? The webinar?
The webinar is at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you go to the ruok.org website, you can register for the webinar right there. You'll get a confirmation and reminders, and you'll have access to all the other information for this campaign.
Oh, absolutely. We got it scrolling across the ticker. And Dr. Smith, you're going to be presenting this? Are you participating in this webinar?
Yes, I am.
I look forward to seeing that.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me here. I mean, it's so eye-opening to hear what questions people have and their thought processes. And I was rewriting it in my head as I was listening to Dale and Dawn, because I'm like, okay, I want to make sure we really get the valuable information to the patients. You guys are the leader of the team, you know. That's how I think of patients. You're the leaders.
That's awesome. All right, guys. Well, Diane, we'll definitely be in touch. Thank you again for coming on and sharing the National High Potassium Awareness Day. Dr. Smith, thank you. Dale and Dawn, we'll be talking with y'all. Everyone, have a great day.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. See y'all.
Okay, thank you.
This was an awesome show. I told y'all guys you wanted to be here to see this. Now, all you need to do is go to the RUOK website, www.ruok.org, and sign up for the webinar May 1st at 1 p.m. Thank you guys for watching. We see you again. Tune in tomorrow for Warriors Quest with Jared A. Brown. We see you then. Thank you and God bless.